From a technical standpoint, let's just put this out there. You wouldn't have a thin panel of glass holding up that much water over your head.
Infinite floating. Oh, wow. It really is floating. That's some serious movement in the architecture.
This is like if you took Main Street Disneyland and merged it with Archigram.
Welcome back, Gamologists. I'm Alexis Redinger of the international award-winning design firm Preen.
I'm Benjamin Ball of Ball Noguez Studio in Los Angeles, an art and design studio.
Today, we're watching BioShock, the trilogy.
Let's go.
Isn't Rapture what was it a few years ago, the whole religious apocalyptic thing that was supposed to happen?
That was supposed to happen for 2,000 years. Since the writing of the book of Revelations in the New Testament.
But there was a specific moment in 2019 or somewhere around then that it was supposed to be the night. Only man.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a lot of apocalyptos who are forecasting the rapture, right? Yeah. It's always happening.
Right.
There's always somebody who's awaiting the rapture. Good movie, dude, from the 90s, written by Michael Tolkien.
I like the design on this one. It's very sort of a little bit 40s, kind of Masonic, a little bit culty.
Can't tell what I'm looking at yet.
I was just thinking going through the building.
BioShock. Yeah, this is going to be dystopian.
I like the overlapping of the old media, right? The aesthetic.
Yeah, I didn't quite catch what the setup is. Something about communism?
Yeah, maybe. 18 fathoms. The elevator has fathoms. It's not really clear what sort of economic model.
I'm going to say it's anarcho-capitalist.
Okay. It's a little bit libertarian, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
This is like the theater district, maybe.
Yeah.
That's cool. This is they have one of these at Burning Man, which you can ride your bike through 1 year.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Burning Man makes its way into a lot of architecture these days.
Yeah. Have you ever done an installation out there?
I have not.
Your stuff would be good for that.
I've done 3 times. I've done them at Coachella, but never at Burning Man.
Interesting. I like how it's like an inverted underwater. I mean, they actually have those spaces.
Yeah, somebody's always building something like that in, in the Caribbean, some kind of underwater restaurant. Is that what you're...
Exactly.
This feels a little bit like the production design of Gotham City or something. There's an attempt to feel historical, but new at the same time. It also has a kind of Jules Verne-esque quality about it.
True. Yeah, but I think the Gotham City references too, it's pulling on the 40s.
Mm-hmm.
So that sort of Art Deco theater, very gilded age.
It feels that some of these feel like lobbies to old movie palaces built between 1920s and 1950s. Yeah, what's the objective in this game? What's the story? You're in Gotham, or you're in Rapture was the name of the place.
I mean, I think we were supposed to build things from the sweat of our brow, but it looks like we're just going to knock some people out.
Right. Well, that might be what's necessary to get something built. You got to whack somebody over the head.
We'll just take theirs.
It wouldn't be the first time something like that's happened.
Okay, so this guy needs his family found.
Yeah, this designer really likes Art Deco, don't they?
They totally do. Everything's arches, upside down curves.
Streamlined, modern at times.
1959.
I mean, the vintage of the architecture is before 1959. Now, this is a cool environment. I like it's a place that I would like to explore.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good designer, actually. And their sense of color is really good, too.
Yeah.
And they really get that sort of luminosity of being under the water.
Yeah. Well, is it underwater?
Yeah.
Okay.
The whole place is.
All right. Right.
And they like signs a lot.
From a technical standpoint, let's just put this out there. You wouldn't have a thin panel of glass holding up that much water over your head. From
Sure.
engineering perspective, folks, not going to happen. Not that much water. Some water, but not that much.
And you would probably have airlock.
You might, yeah. You mean to
just like
bulkhead?
our modern sort of fire doors, but they would be seal. You would have to go through airlocks all the time, I'm sure.
You mean in case one of the chambers failed or something?
In case of breach.
Yeah. This doesn't seem like a good place to be firing a gun.
No.
You create a collapse.
Unless it's like a suction cup gun. Ooh, the tea garden. Something went down at the tea garden. But everything's kind of feels like a theater. Even the hospital, like the surgery.
The lighting is very theatrical. Like they just have, pools of light throughout the space. They don't evenly illuminate the whole space.
There's a whole bunny symbiology going on, symbology.
There is? I didn't see that.
I'm wondering if that's sort of an Alice in Wonderland reference.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know the story of the game. I'd like to know.
Airlocks.
Yeah, there you go. There's the airlock.
Is this just a different part of the city that has sort of fallen into disrepair and nature's reclaiming?
Seems like it. It's like what it would feel like.
We didn't go back in time or forward in time.
No, I don't think so. I think they're outside of they're in the water part.
And I think the signs are interesting because they give that overlay of anachronistic civilization.
Yeah, oddly, all of the neon still works.
Underwater.
Well, not in this place, but not in this part. Earlier they did, yeah.
And the sea plants or creatures are bioluminescent.
Yeah.
That's like the new algae lighting.
Yeah.
Do we get that?
More going in. Minerva's Den.
That must be a big place because we just saw that sign in another frame, like on the ground. Infinite floating. Oh, wow. It really is floating.
Yeah.
That's some serious movement in the architecture.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's like our base isolators in LA. All our skyscrapers are on rollers. Wow. It's very dreamlike.
Yeah. It's worth noting a lot of architects historically, at least since the 60s, have proposed utopian floating cities. I'm thinking of Archigram did a kind of floating city, and there's a lot of others. I remember we were in the Venice Biennale like 12 years ago, and the Mad Architects had proposed a kind of floating city as well. No practical, potential in it. Gets people dreaming. Radical utopianism in architecture.
Yeah, but this is interesting because it's that, but it's with nostalgia.
Yeah, right. This is like if you took Main Street Disneyland and merged it with Archigram. This is what you'd come up with, right?
It's that whole we're just going to America, arriving in America, sort of steamboat time, right?
Yeah, I mean, right. Which is like a lot of the downtown Disney draws on that kind of nostalgia. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Interesting. Oh, 1912. So women do not yet have the right to vote.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know that it would have been so peachy for new immigrants to America. Wouldn't necessarily look like downtown Disney. I'm pretty sure of that. A little more brutal. You don't see any slavery in this space either.
Well, 1912.
Oh, true.
You wouldn't think you would.
You don't see any Jim Crow. Yeah, it's funny. It's an era that Americans often are nostalgic about, as though that era there weren't any problems.
It's like the Titanic era.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, before the World Wars, maybe there's a shred of truth to that kind of innocent time.
You would have been coming off of Scott Joplin, Ragtime, that whole.
Yeah, I think it's before the World Wars. It was the world was an innocent place. People were happy. I don't know about that, but we certainly like to reminisce about it.
There's a lot of Americana nostalgia happening.
It's also kind of what drives places like the Grove in Los Angeles or the Americana in Los Angeles. Thus the name.
That's true. Monument Island. That's cool. Yeah, I don't know what our mission is. Some sort of massive projection or floating sculpture, inflatable.
It's wild because it's all floating, this kind of utopian science fiction, but the architecture's, kind of Queen Anne Victorian architecture or Renaissance revival architecture or Greek revival. It's like you said, it's sci-fi utopianism meets Americana. And now we're in a carnival.
Which is the sort of other theme that you would pair
with that time, sure. Carnivals are cool.
But there's a whole religious overlay, like cast out the devil and this whole sort of conversation about God, but I haven't been able to really catch what it all is yet.
Well, I suppose they got that part of America right, didn't they? Especially that era of America.
Voxophone.
Yeah.
Just like the other BioShock, they really use signage and text to kind of set the tone. Do this whole layer of information encoding as you move through the space.
Yeah, it probably gives you another way to understand it and gets you a little bit, clues you in maybe a little faster.
Is this the Green Fairy? Are we drinking absinthe now?
They're aiming for some kind of journey through America's past in a world that's impossible to engineer at this time. You know, a floating city with Greek revival, Queen Anne architecture. Interesting. It's sort of like we were saying, it's like radical utopianism from the 1960s done with this nostalgic American gloss. That's what I have to say about it.
Well, you could almost look at it as a commentary, right? If there's this nostalgic Americana, absolutely fantastical and unattainable reality that is the nostalgia for what America was. It's actually not a real place.
It never was. Yeah, it sort of casts that nostalgia in an impossible sort of light, which is what it always was. You know, when we see a movie, when we go to Disneyland, it's a kind of fake version, sanitized version of America and American history. And that's what, at least what I got out of looking at the game, that's what they're trying to comment on. Seems like they understand that about themselves in making it. They're not naive by any means.
You can find more of Gamology at YouTube and Facebook. I'm Alexis Redinger, and you can find us on Instagram at Preen Inc.
I'm Benjamin Ball. You can find me at Ball Noga Studio on Instagram. See you next time.